We'll call this meeting to order. This is the May 20th, 2025 meeting of the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board. It is being conducted both in person and via internet, via Zoom. The Zoom links can be found on the agenda and by going to the town clerk's portal page. In order to participate via Zoom, you'll have to use the chat function or raise your hand. Peter Lewis is tonight's moderator, and you will have to make him aware of any interest in participation and commenting. For individuals who are commenting, they will have to provide their name and agency for the particular agenda item they may be interested in. I think that just about covers the details of the introduction. The first item on our agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of April 15th. They were circulated by Stephanie Davis, and the comments made by some members were addressed for the copy that was circulated. Are there any other additions or amendments to the minutes as they were presented? Hearing none, I will move their adoption. Is there a second? Seconded by Susan. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. I did forget one other thing to just indicate presence of individuals. We have present tonight Vicki Kahn, Tim Ganettis, Susan Sherry Clark, Samantha Malone, Bill Hine, and Stephanie Davis, and myself, Ed Wisnowski, and ex officio Julie Green. Liaison David Wilcox is also here. Larry Jones and Jeff Gibbons indicated that they are away and could not be here tonight. So with that, we can move on to, I think, the first item of the published agenda, which are demolition permit applications. And the first one that we have is for 35 Pine Street in Bridgehampton. And a report was circulated to members of the board by myself a few days ago. And the property basically sits, let me first get the geography for this property here. This is located in Bridgehampton, on just not far from Sagaponack Road. This is Montauk Highway. This is Sagaponack Road. If you recall, at our last meeting, we also dealt with adjacent house. This was 194 Sagaponack Road, which was an old farmhouse that was up for demolition, and we did not object. If you recall, the participation at that meeting was via Zoom by the lawyer involved. And this also 102 Audubon Avenue right here was also on our agenda for an addition, which we had no objection to. So neighborhood has a little bit of activity going on. The cottage, wrong. That's not the one either. This cottage is a wood frame cottage and is basically one that was built after 1940, but we did not know that at the time. The assessors database had a 1939 date of origin for it. It was not identified in the AKRF survey of historical resources. And as indicated on the maps that were in the brief that I sent, here 1940 doesn't exist. Here in 1947 it does exist in a settled landscape environment. The property transactions that were traced by newspaper research reflect sale of by Hildreth, who owned the farm that was being developed and subdivided in the 1940s. It was sold to Ralph Cartwright Halsey, who, if you remember, was a party who was associated with the building of 194 Sagaponack Road that I just previously mentioned. He kind of so he then quickly sold it to a family named Bowley in 1948. That matches some historical newspaper articles sometime back that I read. He relocated to Florida about 1944. So he might have had this house for a few years as a cottage and then sold it eventually to Bowley. And then Bowley sold it to Goldbeck in 1951, and that was indicated in the town of Southampton's property records. It sits on a street that currently is gravel. It's not a paved road, and there are a number of houses on it. A lot of the houses that have been put up along this area are actually quite contemporary in design. Let me see if we can get a closer picture here of some of the houses. This is the small cottage and garage that are up for demolition. If you look at it, they are actually very small, and there's nothing on the depth of the property that's there. Very narrow lots. And if you look around, you can see contemporary builds. Here's a recently built box-like structure in the neighborhood, but there are other more modernist style architecture. So the neighborhood doesn't have any coherence as a architectural character for the buildings that are surrounding it. On that basis, there's nobody really of fame, nothing of architectural distinction for the garage or the house, the small house itself. And I don't see any reason to object to the demolition application. So do we have any other comments or feelings about this? Okay, so we'll wrap that as a no objection. 607 Montauk Highway, the question here was a sign.
Sign was never installed. It had been on a prior permit. And we were trying to close out the permit apparently, and needed just confirmation that the sign wasn't there. It wasn't impacting the historic structure. So,
right.
Which there is no sign there.
Right.
And we waived on a full review of this.
And the waiving parties were yourself,
you,
myself,
and me, and
Bill. Okay, just for the.
And it was already submitted.
Okay. All right, 372 Lumber Lane. This is north of Montauk Highway. And just to go out a little bit, as you can see, this is Montauk Highway in the center of Bridgehampton here. Lumber Lane, as it is now called, but it had been also called for about 10 years, Chestnut Avenue, in the early 20th century. But before that, it was also Lumber Lane, presumably because maybe all the wood that was being gathered in the hills on the northern fringes of what they call the Huntington Hills, during the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. This house sits on a hill, particular rise. And sits on a landscape which has tiered levels as the hill rises and the house is at the top. Also up for demolition is, and I did take some pictures. Let me see if I can get them up quickly. This is the current state of the house, a bit overgrown at the time with some of the landscaping there. The property also has another building. This is a south side of the house. What happened to my? Yeah, this is a street level structure that's also scheduled for demolition, a former garage. And if you look here, you can see where the two bays for the garage operation, when it was built, existed, where you see the fill-in of windows and doors there. This is Lumber Lane right here. This building was added to multiple times over the years. The history of it was associated with a German immigrant named Eric Sellington, who came to the U.S. in 1923. 1930, he's found living on Lumber Lane on the other side of the railroad tracks and more to the village. And on Lumber Lane is a family of farmers named Leslie Chase, and he winds up marrying the daughter. And so they establish their household, and he got married in 1930s. So this house is basically 1930 construction, or thereabouts. Let me see if I can get the report back here. So 1930 is, as you can see, there's no house. This is Lumber Lane right here, going from left to right. And this is the parcel where the red arrow is. In 1938, you can see the house is well established. And 1933, you can see the newspaper article which indicates the building of a structure on a property on Lumber Lane. He plans to open a garage and service station there in the near future. Lumber Lane was not a heavily traveled road. Like my own observation, and the first time I saw this property was 1952 about. There were no gas pumps outside, so I assumed that that function did not exist, but he was known as a talented mechanic and very diligent. After he retired in the 1970s, his son took over and decommissioned the garage and started using it as a print shop to publish a fairly significant publication called The Whale for about 10 years that served the Sag Harbor, Bridgehampton kind of watermill, and even into, I believe, Southampton as well, at its circulation. And eventually he began to subdivide the family land and sell it off, and in 1989 quit publication and converted the former garage and now publishing house into residential use. At the same time, approximately the same time, the house on the hill was also converted, made into, I think, 3 apartments. So that all came to a head in 2014 with a ZBA application documenting the conversions that were not done with permit or approval from the town. The buildings, while they have some attractive style to them on the outside, their integrity of design has been lost, and function has been lost pretty much. As you can see, the house looked very elegant in 2003, sitting on a snowpack and sitting up on a hill that provided a pretty familiar sight for many people who would travel on Lumber Lane. The pictures that I showed you a moment ago, basically the landscape has been cleared all around. It was quite grown up. This also overhead door also had residential use at one point in recent times. This is the front of that former garage building. This is a garage for the house on the hill. As you can see, has had 2 bays. It also was converted to residential use, and was cited in the ZBA description. This is the back of the house currently, and here most of the landscaping and trees have been removed from the house. This would be the north side of the house. And the front as it currently exists. So my recommendation is, given the situation that there's no real historic value, the persons are not of great historic note, and the house itself doesn't have any real integrity to it, and I recommend not objecting to the application. Is there any kind of questions for evaluation of this otherwise? No. Okay, well, we'll send back a no objection then on that one. 20 South Valley Road, Hampton Bays. Do you have anything to say about it? Why don't you?
I don't ever want to come here and talk demolition, but
right. Why don't you?
I don't see anybody here from my other organization, so I'll talk just briefly. Hello, everybody. So 20 South Valley Road was a property purchased by CPF, Community Preservation Fund, a few years back. Originally, the properties were, when it was originally divided in 1925, it was a public auction. There were about four properties. Sorry. Yikes. There were about 4 parcels within a section, and they were bought lot 1. These were all in block 111 on the subdivision map. I don't know, did they submit, Renee submit documentation for you?
Photographs and
Of the cottages, yeah, and then, but that's on my history's on the back, yeah. So there were 2 cottages and 1 very small building that are requesting demolition. The property was bought as open space. It is part of a network of trails that we hope to connect. The main property is 9 Hillover, which is just to the south of the larger 4 parcels that have been put together. So I think that's where the confusion comes in with how old these cottages are. There is no, I couldn't find in all my deed searches anything that suggested that there were buildings on the properties when this one woman, Victoria Newman, assembled all of them in 1948 to 1959. She put all 4 parcels together. I couldn't find anything about the buildings that were on the CPF property that were built prior to 1940. So that's kind of where we are right now. The cottages, as you've seen in the photographs, are have been abandoned for years.
There were a couple outbuildings and there were a couple
there's
of ponds.
two small cottages. There's a few ponds, couple of sheds. But originally in 1925, when these properties went up for auction, they weren't improved. They were kept just investment pieces. And until this woman, Victoria Newman, and her husband Otto started purchasing all the properties together. The main house that they owned was at 9 Hillover, which is the parcel, and then she had subdivided it all off. And that main house probably was prior to 1940, but that house has been changed, I believe, in the 1980s was changed and partially demolished, I believe, at that time.
This is one of the water holes or fish ponds.
Yes, that was put in much under the last ownership, dug that. But there are some earlier kind of moats and ponds on the property.
So I don't have any sense of any importance for anything here myself. So if there's questions from anyone on this. So, and this is basically a CPF open space? Or?
Open space, trails.
Okay. All right, well, if there's no objection, there's no objection. Thank you, Julie. Okay, 393 Cooks Lane Watermill. Sent around a report for review. This is currently phrased as belonging in Watermill. The area sometimes goes by the name Hayground, and also sometimes is classified as being part of Bridgehampton. So it's one of those kind of geographical locales that distinguishes the in-folk from the out-folk in Southampton town. So, so as I indicated in the report, the assessors database was 1690, which would raise an eyebrow for the original build of this house. And let me see if I can get the report here. So 1690 in the assessor's record. The house has been a farmhouse for a long period of time. And as you can see, it's really in two sections, two volumes. As it turns out, this volume is basically has a crawl space underneath it. This volume, which would be on the northern side of the structure, has a cellar under it with some blocks and bricks, and I got some pictures I'll just show as well. The application as it's been brought forward is just basically a description of the house and demolition of the house. There are other structures on the property, an old potato barn, and Susan got a chance to visit and take some pictures of those things too, that are in deteriorated conditions, but the barns and the old garage structure were not included in any kind of documentation and description for the work that's involved. So this is basically talking about the house. So and here I did provide pictures of the garage, the potato house, and the plank-sided barn for the property. This is NAKRF, doesn't have a real good handle on the house in terms of their description in the table, but they did say the house appears to lack sufficient historic integrity, and future research might change the evaluation. So checking back on what could be found, and looking at old maps, the 1838 Coastal Survey map has two houses on the westerly side of Cook's Lane, and it matches the census material recording the house of David Cook and the house of Sullivan Cook. And in the 1830 census, they didn't give identifications of all the members of the families. They just gave age groupings for members of the family of the head of household. So you don't particularly know, but I did note that the age groupings fit the known three young sons of Sullivan Cook in the 1830 census. 1840 also did not have individual identification, but there you have three Cooks, Albert G., who was a younger brother of Sullivan, and then Jonathan Rogers Cook, who is in the third house. And just going on, the three Cook households are found in the 1860 census as well. So based on the fact that there were two houses in 1830 and three houses in 1840, I forget what year Jonathan Rogers Cook was married, but it was 1833, 34. So my inference is that another house was constructed at that period of time, and that matches both the historic mapping and the census data that I provided. Jonathan Rogers Cook sells the house, or that eventually his son, Samuel Woodruff Cook, sells the house and sells it to a fairly recent, probably 20 years recent, Polish immigrant family from Southampton by the name of Zaluski. And he and his wife occupy the farmhouse, and they take in their nephew, Thomas Ustremski, who's the uncle to the famous baseball player. And Thomas Ustremski and his brother, Carl Ustremski Sr., both worked the farm together in the 1950s. The Ustremski family, and eventually widow Fencia Ustremski, she died in 2017, and the house has not been occupied since. I did go to the house for taking a number of pictures. One, the house has, the Ustremskis had no children, just like the Zaluskis had no children. So there's a lot of personal family memorabilia and content in the house that sits there, probably ready to disappear. And to, let's see, where was the, let's see if I can get the pictures. What happened to my pictures here? Okay. Okay, so this is the interior of what I would say is the older portion of the house, the northern volume. Uh, beadboard ceiling. Let me go back. Yeah. Okay. I think the chance to organize the progression of images and filter them out. But in any case, this was a kind of a living room in the old area. And that's looking to a kitchen also made up of blue beadboard on ceiling and on walls. This is the front area of once was a porch, was enclosed. As you can see, plank walls. It doesn't strike me that the trim on the doors was 19th century in character. I tried to get a picture of the trim. Unfortunately, the battery weakened on the camera and the flash would not operate, so I couldn't get a good picture of that. But here is part of the structure where the wall board has been taken away, and you can see that it has a frame structure with more modern appearances. Roof, it looked to me like the lath on the roof was pretty uniform, not old in character. It seemed to me an older house would have had boards for the shingling that would be done. This lath appears to be uniform, and my thought was probably 1920s or so, as you can see with this close-up where the roof shingles are. The roof looked like it was redone in some fashion over a period of time. So my sense is there's not much historic character to some of the internal framing structures for the house. This is an older door present. This is part of the the newer portion of the house, where obviously the windows have been replaced and changed. The stairway narrow and very difficult treads to navigate, indicating a character of an older house, certainly. No comments on the color elements to it. Interesting little piece of French doors on the hallway into a living area in the house, the only ones that I saw. And another old door, this door into a living area as well. This is the kitchen, and the stop sign should be ignored. But beadboard, the kitchen has a trap door in its floor, which I had to make several attempts to pry open. But before I get to the trap door, this is the south-facing. This bow window structure looks like another renovation at some period of time, Victorian, 1890 maybe or so, might have been, but did not seem to be part of an original styling for this volume. This is would be the older volume, picture here. and its attachment to the vines were very vigorous. They grew in between the lower sash and upper sash. It's not an opening, but the vines managed to find a way to get through, so that vines are in the house after having grown from the outside.
Social support.
And I will say that my first shock at that experience came in the house that I now live in when the first visit to it, the vines had come underneath the shingles and through the old plaster in the house and had wound their way through. The house was not, the two old ladies were living in the house at the time and were not capable of looking after all the space and features of the house when my father originally purchased the house. But it was a shock to see plant life inside, like that. This is the cellar. And as you can see, there's probably what was ballast rock that was used partially for the foundation. This is brick. The brick seems well mortared yet, so it's hard to date that. Here is another side of the foundation of the older portion of the house. This is the stairway up to the trap door in the floor of the ceiling, but basically you have tree trunks for support. Another wall of the cellar, again, building blocks. This is what appeared to be a newer wall, done that there once was an entry from the outside through this wall. On the outside, there is now a covered place where they put in a wellhead and or there is an underground fuel tank that supplied heating oil for the house. Again, some old supporting timber for the frame of the house. This is the crawl space into the other section of the house. It only had one opening filled with pipes and other things not accessible in any way. But this is, if the engineer's report that was provided indicated that there was a 4-inch deflection in the floor of a portion of the house. It was in the portion with the crawl space, and as you can see, there's some brick ad hoc support for a pier arrangement to kind of prop up that part of the house. So it has a little bit better image of it. And just an old stove that also was sitting in the cellar. There were 3 tractor radiators, metal radiators that were taken from farm tractors that were sitting in the cellar, a lot of other leftovers. This would have been the outside area that would have been an entrance to the building, very hard to configure. This is a garage element. Maybe Susan, you saw that in the pictures you took as well. What's that?
That's the one that had the skylights, I think.
Yes, the garage had skylights put in it as well. Yeah, all of the house had filing cabinets. There are filing cabinets here. The filing cabinets are filled with the personal papers of the former occupants. So basically,
You're saying that the barns aren't part of the application.
That the application does not describe them as part of and the documentation is only for the house. So this is the plank barn, just that that was visited, and the plank barn had, as you can see right through the door, the old door on the barn. And this is an entryway to the barn. This is the potato house, just to indicate the state of the potato house. And the potato house has other stuff in it that reflect as material that people would have used in their daily life as well. So with respect to the house, I don't find it 1690 and more early 19th century in origins, and much renovated and changed in character over a period of time. So
I was just curious about the cellar, with the ballast and the granite, so.
yeah.
Do you think there had been another house?
Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Do you think there had been another house there that burnt down, or they just reused materials, or no explanation?
There was the 1838 map as an indicator, indicates only 2 houses, and the known occupants are known there. Subsequently, there are 3 houses identified on the maps and in the census households on Cook's Lane. So I don't think that there would actually be any evidence of an earlier house there. It would have been the wrong place to build a house in some ways, because it was so far off Scuttle Hole Road, and we know from 1797 map, Scuttle Hole Road was quote a major thoroughfare at the time, and would not probably be the place to put a house isolated from that road.
It doesn't appear that it was moved. It doesn't appear that it was a 1690 house that was moved there either. I mean, since you were
Right, yeah, I don't think it was
that's not
dragged there.
what
Yeah,
you
so,
saw, so.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So, if any questions on, so I'll file a response on, okay. Okay, construction applications, 29 Depot Road, West Hampton.
So David had said that we don't have purview over this. It's a solar panel application.
So we are ready to pass on this by virtue of the exemption given to solar panel installations on buildings that are not designated historic landmarks and not part of historic districts. Okay. All right. 249 Halsey Lane. This is application for an addition to a house in Bridgehampton.
Ed, we have someone on Zoom. I don't know if you're waiting on anyone to talk about this.
Okay. Let me just bring it up first, and you can sign them in, and if they want to make a description of what's involved.
Can you hear me? Or see me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. My name is Brina Armstrong. I work for Catherine McCoy, who we are the architect for this project. Um, I can share the documents that we submitted if that's helpful, just for um, kind of an overview of the project. But this project, the original house, this is at 249 Halsey Road in Bridgehampton. The original house is a two-story structure here, which was built, I think, prior to 1935, and had a subsequent addition to the rear in the 90s. What we are proposing for this project is to pretty much maintain the exterior envelope of the existing house, except for a maybe their existing kind of is this block and this back wing. There is a small sun porch here right now, so we are proposing to remove the sun porch and construct a small connection, which is a one-story piece with a one-story kind of living area to the south. We are proposing to interior renovations to the existing portion of the house, the historic, kind of more historic area, but really maintaining the original character and not really altering the aesthetic of the look of the house. So this is the existing structure, and then this is the new addition to the south. You can see the south elevation here, and everything that is on the new structure will be built to match. The windows will, the shutters, etc. The trim will match what exists.
Okay, I think we'll also have a picture here of the house from above. That gives, I think, a fair indication of what would be involved. This is the area that is proposed for change. It currently has a small second floor roof patio on it. And basically the addition is going to be here in this area with and basically another second floor patio for the house. There's no, I think, big problem with it as far as I see. I didn't think maybe there's this is an old farming area of Bridgehampton that is still preserved. As you can see, a lot of houses have and do reflect additions and alterations in the neighborhood as well. If you look around, and this is probably one of the few small houses that remain in the village area of Bridgehampton. My look at the elements indicate that everything seemed coherent with respect to the existing character of the house, and I didn't have any negative feelings about what was being proposed. I don't know if anyone else had picked up anything on this. So if there's no other comments about this, so okay, I think you'll be good to go.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for coming and providing the explanation and description that you did.
Thank you.
Okay. 156 Washington Heights Avenue, Hampton Bays. This is a, let's see, get the Hampton Bays here. Let me get the application and its pictures. They had a few pictures in it.
Ed, when I looked that up, it had the AYB was 1953 on this particular house.
On this property, I did. Yeah.
That's what I saw.
Yeah. So it's an addition that was put on the house. Unfortunately, the different sizes of the application materials make it difficult to follow through, but this is already work done as one aspect of it. And this is the location here in Hampton Bays. And just to get a let's see. This is not giving the well, I can't get the oblique in the right way, so, but it did not look significant to me. And given your look at the date, I would say that we just respond with without a real objection on this. Okay, all right. 172 South Road, Hampton Bays. I mean, West Hampton.
Okay, this property includes, oh, I thought I turned it on. Okay, thank you. This property includes a dwelling and covered porch with an AYB of 1860, a detached garage with an AYB of 1973. The property is identified in the Town of Southampton Historic Resources Survey, the AKRF of 2014, as Historic Resource WH16. The property was also identified in as the 1860s Andrew Jackson Jagger House in the Historical Profiles of Eastport, Spionk, Remsenburg, and West Hampton from 2004. No historic resources are identified in close proximity to the subject property. Two historic resources, WH40 at 102 Montauk Highway and WH41 at 109 Montauk Highway, are identified a short distance north of the subject property, and the historic resource WH17 at 153 South Road is identified to the east of the subject property. The two properties on Montauk Highway were formerly owned by Jagger families. The immediate area of the subject property was historically largely wooded or farmed, but is no longer farmed and has experienced considerable residential construction infilling in the 20th century. The proposed work includes renovations and additions to the dwelling and renovation of the garage to match the style of the dwelling. No new structures are proposed. This general area was originally settled by several families, including members of the Rayner, Jagger, Halleck, and Fordham families, and the early maps typically show structures primarily along Montauk Highway. The 1838 U.S. Coastal Survey map shows the subject property as cleared, likely for farming, with no structures apparent on the property. The 1858 Chase map does not show any development on the subject property. However, a property to the north, likely what is now 109 Montauk Highway, is owned by A.J. Jagger. At least one structure is shown on this offsite property. The building is noted at the location of the, a building is noted at the location of the subject property on the 1873 map, but there is no identification to the property ownership shown on that map. The 1902 map and the 1916 map both show that the property was owned by A.J. Jagger, which was Andrew Jackson Jagger. The dwelling is shown on both maps, and what is likely a barn, now located on the adjoining property to the north, is shown on the 1916 map. Additional buildings, at least some of which appear to be agricultural, are shown on the A.J. Jagger property, and multiple properties owned by the Jagger family members are nearby. The 1930 aerial photos show the dwelling was present, as was the adjoining barn, and the property appeared to be associated with an adjoining property owned by F. Jagger, including apparent greenhouses to the east. The property entrances were all from South Road. The 1938 aerial photo shows the property continued to be used as noted in 1930, but an additional entrance from Tanner's Neck Lane was apparent. This may have been associated with a sealed board and batten door that's noted on the west side of the dwelling. A.J. Jagger, who was shown as owning the subject property on the 1902 and 16 maps, was Andrew Jackson Jagger, the eldest son of Enoch Fanning Jagger of West Hampton and Phoebe Conklin of Southold. Based on U.S. Census information, Andrew Jackson Jagger was a farmer from at least 1850 to 1900. Andrew married Rachel Bishop of West Hampton in about 1856, and they had 4 children between 1856 and 1872, all of whom were reportedly born in West Hampton. It appears likely that the dwelling on the subject property was constructed for Andrew Jackson Jagger and his wife Rachel not long after they were married. Andrew's father, Enoch Fanning Jagger, was one of several sons of Enoch Jagger of West Hampton and Mahiable Fanning of Southampton. They were married in Southampton in 1788 and lived in West Hampton based on the birthplaces of all of their children. Enoch Jagger was in turn one of the many children of Stephen Jagger, who came from Southampton and acquired a large amount of land in the West Hampton area. Stephen settled at what is now 112 Montauk Highway, just to the northwest of the subject property. Stephen Jagger's home, known as the Jagger House, was built about 1748 and was added to the New York State and National Register of Historic Places in 1978. The house remained present until at least 1984, but burned not long thereafter, with the remnants subsequently removed. Stephen Jagger's second wife was Miriam Wicks of Comac, and their first son was Enoch Jagger. Thus, Andrew Jackson Jagger was the great-grandson of the original settler of West Hampton and one of the many Jagger families who initially developed the area in the subject property vicinity. Historic records indicate that the house once served as the post office for the Tanner's Neck area before an official post office building was used in West Hampton. Mail was delivered to the Beaver Dam area by stagecoach beginning in the early 1800s and was then delivered by horse or on foot to porch post offices in the surrounding area, each of which was usually located in a centralized residence. A large wooden box with a hinged lid was found on the back porch of the subject property dwelling. It includes wide board planks and is similar in appearance to the post office box from Ketchipanek, which is held in the collection of the Greater West Hampton Historical Museum. The museum's box was formerly located in the Jessup Homestead until the post office was established in the Rayner and Bishop store in 1880 in what is now the village of West Hampton Beach. As the box at the subject property is very similar, it appears likely that it is the original Tanner's Neck post office box. The west section of the front covered porch is to be replaced with a one-story addition. The existing corbelled chimneys are to be removed. The flat-roofed angled bay projecting out on the east side of the dwelling is to remain. The north and south sections of the dwelling, the rear or north section of the dwelling is an early addition with a later side porch. This addition and the porch are to be removed and replaced with a two-story addition with a second-floor roof deck on the west side and a first-floor wraparound deck on 3 sides. The side porch roof presently covers a small landing, as well as the hurricane doors to the cellar and the early post office box where people would drop off mail and pick up mail. There are 3 finials under the roof peaks. One of the finials continues above the roof. Some of the original 2/2 double-hung windows have wooden storm sashes. Some have triple-track aluminum storm sashes. Several pairs of windows have storm sashes on one of the windows, yet the other window in the pair has a triple-track unit on it. The original front door is to be replaced. The front entry has a mechanical doorbell operated by a pull handle that still functions. The main stair railings and spindles have already been removed. The stairs is to be removed and reconstructed. The back stairs is in the prior addition is also to be removed, and the attic stair on the second floor to the attic is also to be removed. Many of the glass window panes have wavy glass. The windows are in what appears to be pretty good condition. The original cast iron radiators are to be removed. The original brick fireplace with multiple thimbles in the center of the dwelling is slated for removal. There's a pass-through between one of the rear rooms of the original first floor and a pantry closet in the prior addition. It may have been an opening used to pass mail when the dwelling served as the local post office. The dwelling has unusually wide sidewall sheathing, which could be seen in some of the pictures where the plaster had been removed and also in the attic. There are curved walls in the brick cellar and curved brick steps leading down into the cellar. The brick cellar is to be completely removed and replaced with a full-depth poured concrete basement. The Southampton Historic Resources Survey, the AKRF, notes the property as WH16 and says this cross-gable house with kicked eaves is known as the Andrew Jackson Jagger House, built in the 1860s or slightly later. It purportedly once served as the post office for the Tanner's Neck area. The shingle-clad house has a hip roof, wraparound front porch supported by columns, a pointed arched gable window, and two 2/2 double-hung sash windows. This property is potentially landmark eligible under Towns of Southampton criteria A, C, and E. The historical profiles of Eastport, Speonk, Remsenburg, and West Hampton from 2004 states this house is number 26. It is the Andrew Jackson Jagger House, located on the corner of Tanner's Neck and South Road, was built in the 1860s. It once served as the post office for the Tanner's Neck area before an official post office building was used. Mail arrived in the area by stagecoach beginning in the early 1800s and was then delivered by horse or foot to the post offices, to the porch post offices, usually located in centralized residences. The structure is now a private residence. In summary, the subject property appears to have been initially developed with the current dwelling in the 1860s, was owned by Andrew Jackson Jagger and his family from the mid-1800s to the early 1900s. He was a descendant of Stephen Jagger, an original settler of the area. Buildings associated with multiple Jagger families were formerly present in the area, and a barn that was likely associated with the subject property remains present on the adjoining property to the north. What appears to be an original post office box is still present on the property and likely dates to the time when the house was used as a local post office for the Tanner's Neck area. We didn't feel that the Landmarks Board should object to the construction application, as the original mass of the dwelling is being restored, but we had some recommendations. We recommended that the early wooden post office box be donated to the Greater West Hampton Beach Historical Society. And then we recommended the following items be either repurposed or donated to other projects for historic structures. any windows or doors, the mechanical front doorbell, any of the wavy glass, interior or exterior doors, interior and exterior door hardware, the stair newel post, any of the original electrical light fixtures, of which there's probably about 7 that we saw, any of the cast iron radiators. And then we had several design recommendations. The window color is not noted on the drawings, so in hopes that they won't be black, we hope that they will be white. And also, there are no divided lights shown on the proposed drawings, so we were hoping that they would have the original 2/2 light cuts. There are 2 satellite dishes on the roof that we hope will be removed. The exposed foundation was originally brick, so we were hoping that they could possibly do a brick face, a sliced brick or something on that face to resemble what was there now. There are 2 columns being removed on the porch, the front covered porch on the west side, and there are 2 columns that have already been replaced on the front porch with a permacast composite columns. So it would be nice if the 2 columns from the west side would be used then on what's going to remain on the covered porch on the south side. There are also the finials that are underneath the peak of the roof in 3 locations and 1 above there. And we were hoping, because they're not in the drawings as well, and we were hoping that they would be repurposed on the dwelling. Yeah, those are the original drawings for the house.
The
as it
existing.
exists now.
Yeah. And
Did you say the front porch was going to stay as it was, or it was going to be enclosed?
It's an L shape. So the western section, which is the side of the house, that's going to be replaced with a 1-story addition. The front porch itself on the south side of the house will remain. It is a corner lot, so it is visible from both South Road and Tanner's Neck Road. And the porch, the main part of the porch faces South Road. The parts that will be converted to the 1-story addition does face Tanner's Neck, so you will see it. There's also a second floor roof deck proposed on the west side of the house, which does face Tanner's Neck. They proposed a stainless steel wire cable rail, so we were hoping that that would be replaced or redone in a spindled, more traditional railing.
any questions of our reviewers here? So if there's no thoughts otherwise, you have a series of recommendations and advice on improving the project for the historical renovation. Would you do the response and provide them?
Yep.
Is that okay? Okay. Very good. All right. '76 South Phillips Avenue, Remsenburg, which is another going to do an oral review on this, Stephanie?
Yeah, just a very, very short one.
Okay.
This property is identified as a historic resource, RSHD4 in the town's 2014 survey. And it's also noted in the Hamlet Heritage Area that includes Remsenburg. The main structure there is a Queen Anne style dwelling constructed in the 1880s for Frederick Caleb Rayner, who was one of the many Rayner family members who owned a bunch of the property in the area and farmed for many years. This house was built shortly after Frederick Rayner married Edith Rogers from Eastport. It actually was built shortly before their marriage. The house was built from a kit ordered from Sears and was constructed on the site. The subject of the application is actually a one-car garage that is located somewhat to the rear of the residence and is partially visible from the street. The one-car garage building was reportedly constructed in about 1920, also for Frederick Caleb Rayner, and it was one of several outbuildings that were formerly present on property. The other outbuildings have been, that were all part of the agricultural operation, have been removed back in the 1960s. This property was recently purchased by a new owner who undertook a number of renovations of the house interior and this garage building. And essentially the work that was done on the garage building was to convert it from a garage use to use, an apparent use, as a storage building and also as a pool house. And as part of that conversion, a bathroom was installed in the garage building without the benefit of a permit. So this is now to legalize, as they say, the work that's already been done. Now, the bathroom has been removed, and the area that was the bathroom has been converted back to storage. I'm not particularly concerned with the changed use of this building or with the bathroom, legal or not. The thing that concerned me is that in this process, the historic appearance of this building, which was 1920 shingled garage building, now no longer resembles what it once was. It still retains the same four-square appearance, but it is no longer shingled. It's now got a clapboard siding. There was a roll-up door that was installed by the prior owner. It's been replaced by another roll-up door, but this is a glass roll-up door with translucent panels. It's very modern appearing. And there's been another door added to the north facade and windows added. The original window in the structure was a 6/6 divided light window. These windows are single pane windows. So basically the renovation work that was done without a permit did not benefit from any advice that this board might have given in terms of perhaps using materials that would have retained some more of the historic appearance of the building. So I put in a number of photos to illustrate what what was done here. And my recommendation is that we not object to the work that was done, but to make the owner, aware of the historic value of this particular property, and that the replacement of a lot of the exterior materials, in my opinion, diminishes the historic value of this particular structure. That's my recommendation.
The garage door, as I recall, well, I looked at it on a street view of Google, and it was very different from the character of the house.
Yes.
And slightly disturbing in terms of the sense of having something basically reflective of the historic character of the house.
Yes.
It had a lot of large window lights.
Yeah, it's translucent glass, and the lights are often left on at night, so it kind of glows there in the back of the property. It does not provide any historic ambiance at all. The structure, and for full disclosure here, I live right next door, and this was originally part of my family's properties. It used to have sliding barn doors. There were two small barn doors that slid and opened. The prior owner replaced those at one point with a roll-up door that was not historically appropriate. But in replacing that roll-up door, there could have been a choice made that would have been perhaps more resemble the barn doors that were once there. In fact, one of the applications we were looking at earlier tonight, there's a barn or a garage that's proposed to be demolished that has a big roll-up door that with the crossbuck pieces on it, it looks very much like a barn door, and it would be perfect doors for this structure that would more closely resemble the original barn doors that it had. So,
So what you're suggesting is no objection, but a critique of the aesthetic that is slightly wrong.
yes, and that, if the applicant had come for a permit in advance of doing all this work, as apparently should have been done, we could have provided some guidance that might have resulted in something that was more historically appropriate.
Everybody okay with that response for the board? Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick question on the garage. Are they using it for any other purpose, or is it exclusively a garage? Because there might be a need, are they using it for a studio or something where they needed those translucent panels?
The only thing that I see it used for, and this is not a full-time occupancy in this house, I've seen it used for storage, and apparently, this is theoretical on my part now, but with the bathroom in there, I believe, and it's right next to a newly constructed pool. I believe it was probably used as a pool house, as a changing area and whatever. Yeah, but I have not seen any car parking in there, and the driveway's been reconfigured to allow for more parking in the driveway area.
Yeah, that door style is pretty popular right now.
Yes, but it is not exactly a local
Right.
aesthetic.
So in one of the photos, it shows an exterior air conditioning condenser.
Yes.
So the building is air conditioned, possibly heated.
Yes, the building they definitely have a heat pump style unit there. It's climate, they're controlling the climate in the building. The insulation was added. It used to be, you could see the frame inside, you could see the sheathing. It was just a unheated garage. I haven't seen any cooking facilities in there, but.
Okay, if we are all set for that then, all right. And you will do the honors. No certificate of appropriateness discussions. There is a time-sensitive referral that was sent to us last week, so it was not on the specific agenda, and it involved Halsey Lane, 240 Halsey Lane. Let's see, was it 240? Was that? Let me check the over here. 240 Halsey Lane, yes. It was a referral which has a public hearing coming up, and it's down the road from the house we just talked about on 249 Halsey Lane. But what is shown is a prospect of a subdivision of a property, and the property has, as you can see, has some space here, but there are existing houses on them. I did not get a chance to look at the AYBs and other features of them, but the way in which the subdivision appears to be projected, it would involve removing at least this set of buildings or structures here. And as you can see, the two lots that are proposed, this doesn't indicate directly that they would be removed in terms of the proposed site plan. But I think one of the things that may be just responded to is that concern over any historic building. If I check them out and try to isolate any particular reason, historical reason, that there should be some preservation, would you allow me to formulate the response to the planning board on that basis? No? Okay, all right. So, all right, so that referral is due, I think, public hearing. Oh, the public hearing is June 26th. I originally read that as May 26th. So.
Our next meeting is June 17th.
Right, yeah. We can have more review if needed of that, so. Okay. Pending landmark historic district applications.
If you want to push me down, I can do, and I can give updates on all the other things you've got listed. So I just wanted to say you can push me. Take these first. You can put me down here,
Well, you want to do,
because then I can give you updates on all those things. Except for probably you.
okay, well, we're
Does that
not
make
doing
sense?
439.
Okay.
Because,
Well, Martin's here.
292 Majors Path we can do, yes, yeah.
Does that help? And then I don't know, 85 East.
That's
That's
been sitting around for a long time, yeah.
I can't every day, but then I can give you updates on all that.
Right, yes. Okay, so we'll defer Julie with 1040 Flanders Road, Flanders. 439 Hayground Road, I have not gotten a chance to look at in any detail, and would put that off until the June meeting. 292 Majors Path, North Sea. We've had this application since March. If you recall, the house at 292 Majors Path is very distinctive. Was once part of a larger context here. This was an older, once significant riding academy, and actually a riding and hunt club in the first quarter of the 20th century. The house is split off, if I can get the data here, from the original property. So we had Martin here in March giving us an overview, Martin Schwartz, and he provided photographs and a narrative for this property. Basically, this house dates from the 1880s, when it was constructed, and has went through a number of owners, mostly from the 1880s to about 1915, of people who had society connections with each other, not always in Southampton, but in New York City. And the property eventually was sold to a gentleman, an Irish immigrant named Martin Alward, who came to the United States in 1892. Listed his occupation coming into the country as farmer. 1910, he's living in New York City, employed in a writing establishment in New York City. I probably know which one at the time, but in any case, he's living in a neighborhood on 58th Street in which it's lined with coachmen and liverymen that all seem to be associated with carriages and stables in the area. So that's 1910. In 1915, he purchases this 40-acre parcel that where did he get the money from? I don't know, but probably potentially he had some backers associated with the desire, maybe focused originally in New York, but said we all have places in Southampton and surrounding areas, and sought to establish a riding and hunt club, the Southampton Riding and Hunt Club. At the time, this stuff was high society entertainment for the families in the summertime. East Hampton had its own formed riding and hunt club. In Watermill, you had the Suffolk Hounds. I don't know if Susan remembers anything about them, but they had their own clubhouse, which was later turned into a hotel that lasted until the 1970s before it was torn down. But this was a big entertainment element here. In 1900, Southampton Village had a showgrounds off of McGee Street for horse shows, but they were very small. They were usually one-day affairs and went on. And then suddenly the arrival of kind of deeper pockets in the community and people who had horse experience with horses and otherwise interested in them for racing purposes, for jumping purposes, experienced elsewhere closer to New York. They began to arrive in Southampton and associated together to form a horse show association about 1905 or so. And they grew in their show business, so to speak, over a number of years, so that by the 1920s, this facility, the Southampton Riding and Hunt Club, had built up the stables, had built eventually rings for both show purposes, jumping purposes, and other equestrian activity. Let's see if I can just bring up some related pictures here. This just are images from 1930, 38, and 47 of the area. 1930, was the second year of basically the operation of what was the Southampton competitive horse show under the ownership of Martin Aylward, Aylward was his last name. And as you can see, the rings are already in places. The stables are constructed. There are 5 structures to be found. 1938, you also see this ring, and just note this ring for the moment, and the relationship of the house that we're talking about at 292. The properties are separated. 292 is the house lot we are talking about. The areas which were for equestrian purposes is now 320 Major's Path. Let me back out of this and go up one. The equestrian training and the equestrian culture of the East End involved a lot of society people. Most notably, we'll just check, is a famous person. This is Jacqueline Bouvier before she became Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. At the horse show, there are tons of pictures of her that are to be found related to that, related to her riding there, as well as riding elsewhere. She lived in East Hampton and trained and rode at the East Hampton riding facility as well. This is a historic picture of the house that we're talking about, 292. And it's Italianate in origin, wraparound porch. Let me see if I can switch these. Rotate. Let's see if, there it is, press the L button, rotate left. So as you can see, the house in an earlier period of time has very distinctive features to it. A flat roof on top. That is not the current condition. The current condition is a gabled roof on it. And just to look at that and then go back to a picture of the 1930s, here you see the East End Society at a horse show moment. It happens to be, I think, a women's class race that is being observed. And in the background, you see the house that we're talking about here. People love to come to these events in cars. When the Southampton Riding and Hunt Club would put together a ride to the hounds, they would basically, lay out the route across farms and fields and have the jumps that people could generally navigate. But they also made the route so that people either in their cars or in their coaches, horse-drawn coaches, could follow along the jumpers who were out in the field competing. So cars were always already a big feature of the horse culture out here. Again, another picture of another time indicating the character of the house and its cupola. So without spending perhaps too much more time, let me just bring up a set of expectations about this, because designation of the landmark requires association with at least one of 5 pieces of information. From the narrative and the pictures that have been provided to us, the question is, how much do they apply? And the first definition, first standard, is possessing special character of historic or aesthetic interest of value as part of the cultural, political, economic, and social history of the locality, region, or state. My assessment, I offer to you, is that the structure has special character because of its connection to the riding and hunt club, the equestrian culture that is out here, and that's been an important focus for the equestrian culture and economy in Southampton town to this day. The evolution of the Southampton Horse Show, it was suspended periodically between or after the wars for a point in time, and then revived. But it went from place to place, so to speak, after a point in time. It wound up as basically the Hampton Classic, which is now the major international horse show event out here on the East End. That little old horse show at the Southampton Riding and Hunt Club back in the 20s and the 30s became increasingly more complex. And instead of having varied things like competition between the various classes of jumpers and show horses, they would even have farm horses being judged for their character, and horses that drew coaches as well. But it gradually evolved into a multi-day, much more narrow focused kind of equestrian culture out here. And so I find that is a specific thing. I mean, does that meet your sense of what is valuable about this house because of its connection to that history? The question of whether or not a second criteria is a historic person that might be identified. Myself, I didn't find enough of a importance to Martin Aylward. He ran a business. He ran a business in New York as well. He was very successful out of it for a long period of time, multiple years, until he died in 1942. He was born in 1869 and died in 1942 in New York. But it's not something that stands out. I could not find a picture of him. Usually somebody in business, there's some newspaper photograph or whatever, but I could not locate one. So my inclination is not to see a particular historic personage, even though Jacqueline Bouvier, as a 8-year-old or 9-year-old, had some riding lessons there with her parents in tow, as some of the pictures show. I don't think that is significant enough of a connection, but basically a matter of opinion, I guess. The third question is whether it embodies distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type. I think it does. It's a Victorian piece that has very distinctive characteristics to be described in more detail than I gave, but it does have architectural integrity and fits that. I don't know. We don't have a designer or engineer builder of note that I have been able to figure, or architect whose work has significantly influenced an age. So I don't find that relevant to deal with. The question of one of the open questions to me was whether or not, because of its location, is a familiar visual feature of the landscape out here. In recent years, it's been kind of masked by landscape and vegetative growth around it. I don't travel that road often, so I don't know the sense of familiarity. Susan, do you have a? What's that?
I look for it.
I guess I've always been fascinated by the house, so it's very visual, to me. It's every time I go down that road.
But you're shopping for houses when you look at it.
Right, but I would think it would catch the eye of, most people.
Okay, well, that's.
But I speak for myself.
Doesn't take much to convince me that it could be worthwhile. I don't know, Julie, you also are familiar with that area. Do you have the sense that it really presents itself as a familiar object to the neighborhood and community around?
It has a very unique setting as well. So the way it's set on the road on Major's Path is very unique. It's not set back. It's really visual to any passerby. So, yeah.
And actually, if some of the landscaping masking, yes, it would be.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm convinced. So thanks for the
Just to
impression.
add to that,
Yeah.
The south vegetation that was previously blocking on the reserve property has now been completely open. So you can actually see the house coming up to it as you come along. I've cut down the hedge that used to be 12 feet high on that south border too to 6 feet. So you can actually see the house. It's not in great shape, so I masked it a little bit, but now, if it gets fixed up, you'll have a beautiful view coming right up to it, going up Majors.
Because it faces south
It does.
as you travel north on Major's Path.
And
So,
you can also see it as you pass by. You see the west face, which I think you have a picture of there too, where that car was, or that other side. That would be opened up too if the hedge was cut down, which it would be once the house exteriors were stored. So it would act as a landmark setting. That's really the whole idea, to bring that back. And all that land is now opened up, so the whole area is coming back to a farm kind of feel.
Just for the record, that was Martin Schwartz, the owner of the property and applicant for the landmark designation that we're talking about. So I will, so then, just to summarize that, we find that it meets the possesses special character, and C, because of its architectural style and integrity, it embodies distinguishing characteristics. And E, that it is familiar to the passersby on Major's Path and therefore has those three characteristics. Is there a problem for anyone on that score? Okay, well then, we should have a motion to provide a recommendation to, which I'll write up in more detail for recommendation to the town board for this designation. So we have Vicky moving that motion and seconded by Samantha. And I should have asked you, you also travel that road, don't you?
Yes, I was going to say I live around the corner and I pass by every day, and it is unique in that it's really on its own there on that side of the road. So passing by what's now opened up and cleared as a farm again, and once it is restored, I think would be very special to see again as a landmark. But I do look for it every day when I drive by.
Okay, well, thanks. Now I'm thoroughly convinced. So I have not been there since maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago since I was there. So stuff that's happened, I'm not up to date on that. So we have a motion by Vicky and seconded by Samantha to recommend designation to the town board. Any further discussion? And none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. The motion is approved. And we'll be spending our next 2 weeks getting the package together.
Great shot there of the house in the background.
Oh.
Great shot. Never saw that one before.
I'll send it along. I'll probably keep it in the package too. But I'll send it along.
I sent you some interiors as well.
Yeah.
Interior plaster molding.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll do 292 is off. Just 4 Beaver Dam Road was designated by the town board at a meeting about 3 weeks ago.
April 22nd.
April 22nd? Okay. 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, it had been on earlier and then they moved it.
65, okay. This Stony Brook Southampton Windmill, I know the supervisor is talking to the village of Southampton about the material of relocating the windmill. But
I had done a work session with the town board. So I had done a work session with the town board regarding the Southampton windmill, and the village is very interested in moving the windmill back into the village. So that is, nothing has been done. That's a state-owned property. So I think that the work session's end result was that a letter was going to be written to the governor of the state about getting the windmill perhaps brought back to the village. And if that is done, it would most likely be put on a CPF property. And that's kind of where we left it. So
the CPF property being referenced for potential relocation is located where?
there are a couple of properties, but the one that was originally mentioned was the property across the street from the library, the Rogers Memorial Library, right on Windmill Lane. So the mill would be back on Windmill Lane. So that's one potential property.
And since that discussion, there was going to be some follow-up by the supervisor's office to...
There is what's going to happen, so there's going to be a letter drafted between the village and the town to the governor.
To the governor.
About this possibility, yeah.
Any need to communicate with the authority that governs the campus?
I think that's all, they're all in the mix, yes. Yeah, so I'm not sure from that meeting if the
Okay,
State
all right.
University will obviously be part of the
Well, there was
conversation. But I think the initial keeping it where it is not really on the table at the moment.
yeah.
It's about
Well,
getting,
the reason I ask is because there are a number of linkages in the State University administrative structure
right,
that.
right. I mean, I loosely say a letter to the governor, but
Okay, well,
yeah.
all right. So that's the Stony Brook
Yeah.
windmill story on hold for the moment. The the other items you wanted to address?
So 11 Walnut Avenue in East Quogue, that's moving along. They have, the owners of the home, the fitters, have documentation. It's now up to them. This was, contracts were sent for historic facade easements, which is what they were using to leverage landmarking for historic facade easement through the CPF. The same with 149 South Country Road in Remsenburg. They have a contract as well. 29 Dock Road, I'm not quite sure what this notation is, but that has been, we've closed on that historic facade easement.
Yeah, that's just a placeholder because they have a landmark maintenance grant that we have continued for this year. And it's just a reminder to us that that's out there, assuming that they do what they said they were going to do.
And then and we spoke about the Rainer Fish House, so that was April 22nd, Resolution 596. So now we'll get to 1040 Flanders Road.
1040, yes.
I'll try and make this quick. I'm just gonna read from here so I can kind of stay on track. 1040 Flanders Road in Flanders is most commonly known as Methodist Point. I'll give you a little history background, but Methodist Point, so there are three structures on this property. There are many structures on this property. There are three that we'd like to landmark as a whole unit. So there's the Methodist Point House, it's circa 1890. There's a barn that's most likely an early, late 18th century, early 19th century barn on the property, as well as a converted, a 1930s converted windmill that stood on the property. It's been enclosed inside a barn, small barn, and the water pumping windmill that was once there has now been converted using steam power. So it's a very interesting little building, and we thought it's worthy of landmarking. So the property is 4.5 acres of land along Reeves Bay and has been identified as a historic resource and contributing structure in the town's duck farming, maritime, and recreational history. The property was evaluated in the Town of Southampton Resources Survey as a potential resource, and each structure possesses characteristics that are historically significant. This report has been prepared to document the property's history in support of town landmarking. In addition to the iconic 1890 farmhouse, the circa 1800 red barn, which are visible from Flanders Road, which I mentioned, there's a small converted windmill barn that adds to the farm's history. The property is located on historically known as Otter Hole Neck in the hamlet of Flanders, first settled in about 1760 by Josiah Goodale. It was purchased in 2021 with the Town Community Preservation Fund to acquire the property as both wetland preservation and historic preservation target areas. Some old photographs, if you're not familiar, these are George Bradford Brainerd photographs, and that is a structure that's still, that's the Benjamin House, right? James Benjamin House in the center there. You cannot see the house that originally stood on Methodist Point. It's obstructed by those trees. So best known as Methodist Point, a name originally thought to be connected to the Griffin family who owned it in later years. This property actually dates back to Captain Charles Smith, a coastal trader, and his family who settled in Flanders from Machias, Maine in the late 1790s. Just a little note that Ella Squire Sr. family of Squiretown, whose home is a historic landmark, and the Smiths were linked by marriage through a few generations. Captain Smith and his wife Dorcas Foss Smith were instrumental in the early establishment of a Methodist society on the eastern end of Long Island, specifically in the formation of a church in Sag Harbor in 1809. Before Methodist churches were built on Long Island, members held services in their homes, stopped for circuit riders to preach along the way. It is supposed that the Smith House served Methodists on the western part of the town here in Flanders. Captain Smith died in 1835. His wife, Dorcas Smith, continued to live on the property until her death, and she is buried alongside her husband in the Flanders Cemetery. In 1857, after the death of Dorcas, an auction advertisement for the property read that very pleasant and romantically situated homestead and of the late residence of Captain Charles Smith, deceased at Flanders in the town of Southampton, and consisting of about 25 acres of land on which is a comfortable dwelling house, barn, an orchard, and a never-failing spring near the door. The space is particularly valuable for the privileges that surround it, such as fishing, eeling, etc., and being nearly surrounded by water. That was an advertisement that was in the Sag Harbor Corrector in 1857 that I just read from. Captain Charles Smith was a coastal trader. In that earlier photograph of the black and whites, you can actually see sloops and ships in the bay. They were carting salt hay and timber, which was a big industry for Flanders at the time. In 1858, the Smith family sold the 25-acre property, and I also note that by purchasing this property, the CPF for the town of Southampton has now put that 25 acres back together again. This parcel is just shy of 5, so we added to all the other pieces that we own. The town owns, and it's back to the 25-acre original lot. So this 25-acre property was sold to John L. Griffin for $675 in 1858. John's son Samuel Griffin was a young man who made his livelihood working in the cordwood industry, shipping timber between Flanders and New Haven, Connecticut, before eventually settling down on his father's farm. The cordwood industry, as you can see noted on this photograph, in this area was a primary source of income, with thousands of cords worth being cut every winter. Teams of horses would then haul the wood over to the landings on shore, where it would be ready to load on sloops and schooners that sailed to Connecticut and New York City's ports, providing fuel for the burgeoning metropolis. In 1884, Samuel Griffin turned his attention to the duck-growing industry and established the first duck farm in Flanders on Methodist Point. By the turn of the 20th century, the farm was raising more than 5,000 ducklings per year. The duck industry appears to have begun on Long Island in the Spionk and Eastport area. The raising of ducks did not become a full-time industry on Long Island until sometime between 1880 and 1885. Prior to that, the raising of ducks was a supplemental activity to farming and fishing. Duck farmers experimented with different methods of production in the late 1800s and early 1900s before the duck industry began its steady production expansion. Taking full advantage of the arrival of summer visitors in Flanders, Samuel Griffin, while tending to his budding duck farm, built the large farmhouse in 1890 and took in summer boarders throughout the early 20th century. So lured by cooler temperatures and glistening white sand beaches, people began journeying to the South Shore to villages like Flanders with the advent of the Long Island Railroad, first to Riverhead in 1844 and then to Southampton in 1870. The East End became a haven for sportsmen and summer visitors seeking rest and relaxation. One summer, Lodger wrote, every thrifty and intelligent farmer formed the habit of taking in summer boarders for 4 months of the year. And this extra income with summer boarders kind of lightened up their winter. They could take it a little bit easier farming. By the close of the 19th century, there were approximately 10 boarding houses and converted farmhouses operating in Flanders. Samuel's wife, Annie, and daughters Fanny and Blanche most likely were in charge of the guest accommodations. With the marriage in 1914 of Samuel Griffin's daughter Blanche to Thomas Irving Havens, a neighbor, the duck farm duck farm daily operations eventually passed down to Thomas, or T.I. as he was known. Working alongside his son-in-law, the farm became known as the Griffin and Havens Duck Farm. Somewhere along the line, the Griffins dropped their G on the end of their name. So it became the Griffin, no G, and Havens Duck Farm. T.I. Havens took the duck farm to the next level of success and was a founder and member of the Long Island Duck Farmers Association. Riding on the coattails of the Griffin and Havens duck farming success, the western portion of Otter Hole Neck was developed by Carl Neighbor as a duck farm and home to Long Island's most notable landmark, the Big Duck, which is a national and state landmark in itself. Just a note, in 1958, T.I. Havens gifted the Flanders Men's Club the property, buildings, and ground that they call home. Up until that time, it had been used as to raise ducklings. So the Flanders Men's Club was part of the Griffin and Havens Duck Farm. Unfortunately, with the decline of the duck industry due to many factors, including water pollution and T.I.'s death in 1966, duck farming ceased on the point. His widow, Blanche Griffin Havens, died in 1975, and the property, after nearly 120 years, passed out of the Griffin family. With the potential landmarking of the three structures, this 1890 main farmhouse, an circa 1800 barn, and the 1930s converted windmill barn, the community preservation plans to restore the property and its rightful place in Flanders and Southampton agricultural history. Any questions? And you've got pictures of the structures themselves, Ed. So that's the main 1890s house that will be restored. And we'll bring it back to its original 1890s. That enclosed porch is a later addition. It's just a small little outbuilding connected to the house that will stay. That is the north elevation of the house on the point. So that enclosed porch will be removed. These are just some pictures of the basement. Some bricks, some stone. And I should mention that the Charles Smith, Captain Smith house, we believe was removed. There are some aerials that show a structure in the back of the farm. There were many buildings, and it's on the 1962 aerial, and then it disappears. There were thoughts that one of the structures on the parcel, which ultimately will be torn down. That's at a different meeting. Is not the original house that was built in the early 1700s, early 1800s. There's nothing that shows from the architecture, from the framing, the materials that would suggest that house is very old. So this is just an interior shot of the Victorian beadboard. A lot of the staircase finials have been removed, but that will all be restored in the interior. This is the barn and the main structure on your right-hand side of the photograph. We believe is early 1800s. That would have been part of the Smiths family homestead, and that we would like to restore as well. Just a different south elevation.
This would be removed?
I believe so. I don't think there's any material in there that warrants it, but we'll have to take a closer look at that.
And the stuff like the skylights will disappear?
Yeah, and the skylights are not historic. And that's just that's the west, the north and west side of the barn. some of the interior of the barn, some of the post and beam peg construction. I think that's the lower level of the barn, and you can see in that section right there, that's for cow milking. In the upper loft of the barn. And that's the small converted windmill, water pumping windmill. And that's the interior of the windmill barn.
So you have three structures that are being proposed.
Right.
The farmhouse,
The big white farmhouse,
red barn.
the red barn, and that
and
smaller
then
structure.
The windmill barn.
Yeah.
that Just
Yeah.
shingle structure. And the question is then, based on what we have, do these structures possess special character or historic interest as part of the cultural, political, economic, and social history of the locality? Duck farming is a quackable reason for contributing to the economic, certainly history of the region, not only in Flanders, but all of the South Fork as well as the North Fork too. Historic personages. Are you nominating any individuals as historic personages here?
The more I learn of Thomas Irving Havens, T.I., who married Blanche Griffin, who came in and took over the duck farming, he's a very interesting person. He also, which I just learned recently, I was given a photo album of photos from the probably 40s and 50s, mainly from a person in Flanders, mainly of horses. Men with horses, and everybody was a little unsure what it meant, but I'm like, let me scan all the pictures, we'll keep it. We know it was it was the Goodale family, which they live, their house is, just to the east of this point. They were the first settler family in Flanders in 1760s. So we took a thing, and it turns out that I started doing research on Mr. Havens, and he had a trotting horse farm in Flanders. I believe the farm, it was called Hobby Park, which, because he was a duck farmer, raising horses, training trotting horses was just a hobby. So it was called Hobby Park, and wouldn't you know it, in this photo album of all these men with horses, there's a barn in the back that has a plaque over the door that says Hobby Park. So we can now we know where all these horse photos and what they are of. He had very valuable trotting horses that he raced throughout New York State. So he's a very interesting character, worthy of, he didn't do this horse farming, this horse training on this property, so I would say not, but he's an interesting character.
Okay, so no identifiable historic personage to credit here. Distinguishing characteristics of architectural type and period. Does the house have a period style to it that's recognizable?
I mean, I would say just its location alone, and now that it's been painted white, at least, to remove the red stripes that were on it, it is, it will be, once again, a visual part of the landscape.
But the question is there...
Am I off on one? Sorry.
Yeah, just C on
Oh, see,
an architectural type period, how would you?
I mean, I think it looks, unfortunately, many of the large boarding houses that were in Flanders are all gone. They either burned down or were torn down. So from those old photographs and old postcards, this is very typical of that era when it was built.
But it was not used as a boarding house.
This house was used as a boarding house.
It was used as
Yes.
a boarding house.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that then I think needs to be detailed out a little bit in terms of.
I mean, he built it in 1890 I think that's one of the primary reasons that he built it. He had a small family and he built a 3-story home to take in boarders.
Okay. There's no designer, engineer, builder, artist, or architect involved in that?
Not that
Okay.
I'm aware of.
And then by virtue of its location, is it an established visual feature of Flanders?
Yes.
Those who are familiar with the Hamlet? Okay, so that's the judgment of the board. So just to summarize, it possesses special character associated with the economic history of the locality. It embodies a distinguishing characteristic of an architectural type associated with the Victorian era boarding house on the South Fork, and has a unique location that makes it a familiar and established feature of the area. So, does that everyone agree to those findings? Oh, okay. So we have those, and I didn't prepare a resolution, draft resolution or so, but is there a motion to recommend to the town board the designation of 1040 Flanders Road, Flanders, for designation as a town landmark? Moved by Tim. Is there a second? Seconded by Vicky. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Motion is approved, and we're on our way. Okay, I think we've about covered the 85 Eastway Shinnecock Hills. Did you have something?
No, I mean, that's the barn?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I can't remember how its origins are as a landmark application.
Expressed interest in potentially landmarking it. This was quite a few months ago. So it has been sitting. Said somebody had expressed interest in landmarking it, and this was quite a few months ago, and that's at the point it was placed on the agenda. But I haven't seen or heard anything further about it.
I think it was all part of 520.
Yeah, my sense
House
is.
that's up on the hill. This is the barn that belonged with that house.
Yeah.
That house could be moved. Trying to make it work on that property where the barn house stands.
That's my vague understanding of it too, yeah.
Sounds like it's a moot point at this point.
Yes, I would say, I think it can be
Removed.
taken off. And as I said, 439 Hayground Road we'll have to work on for next month's meeting. Have we skipped anything on this list? I don't see anything. Okay.
What's happening with 65 Old Riverhead Road? This is the Burluke?
Oh, yes, that's still one of my open projects to finish writing up. Everything has just been tossed my way. And but it has not stopped the closing on it.
No, it was
So, yeah.
2 different target areas.
Right, yeah, so the ability for it to close was eliminated, so. Okay, historic landscapes, it's still an open question with nothing new on that. Southampton, Stony Brook, Southampton historic buildings is basically the windmill and the Clapham estate as well.
Sorry?
The Arthur B. Clapham,
Oh, the house.
yeah, the house.
I didn't-
That's an open question too, which might be part of any potential negotiations that might need to be undertaken. We'll see. Certified local government activity.
Yes. Yeah, I just want to mention, I did attend the New York State Preservation Conference on May 7th.
Oh, in Poughkeepsie?
In Poughkeepsie, it was very interesting. It was a great opportunity to meet all the other, board members and commission presidents from around the state. Not surprisingly, everybody sort of faces the same issues and questions that we have, regardless of how small or how large their towns are. We also got to meet Francis Stern, who's our liaison and the new director with whom we work. Very interesting, very engaging conference. I brought back a couple of little handouts here of the most, I'm not sure that there's anything particularly new, but this is big discussion on alternative materials and for historic properties. There are a lot of samples. Obviously, I couldn't bring that back, but there are new products being developed all the time that are really, really interesting. Many of them developed actually in Canada. I don't know why, but Canada seems to be a big producer of historically acceptable materials. It was very interesting. And then also,
we produce plastic, they produce wood.
they produce wood.
Yes.
But they are producing different kind. Of course, wood has changed over the years dramatically. There was a big discussion about, the quality of the wood currently and what it was and why wood posts are still relevant when you see the historic buildings and they still hold up those structures and wouldn't do that today. And then also there was an interesting discussion on the tools of historic preservation and planning. I have the entire booklet here. If anybody's interested in seeing it, speakers were terrific, and it was a very good experience, very positive.
Yeah. Something I was going to address about that, but
Vicki, did they accept our annual report, or are they still reviewing that?
They're still reviewing it because the deadline to submit was the end of this month. So we were actually the first in the state to submit it, probably because we only had 2 years of data to submit rather than 4. But Frances was very happy, and she reminded everybody, please, please, please get those reports in. But so it will be reviewed.
about how many people were there, would you estimate?
For the CLG, there was one day specifically for CLG, and there must have been, there were probably about 10 people at a table. There were about 100 people, I would say.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So it was well attended.
Right. Well,
Various
thank you
vendors.
for volunteering.
Very interesting, and it wasn't far to go, so that was good.
And we should get the town to pay mileage to such an event.
That would be
And
nice to know.
tolls.
Pardon me?
And tolls.
Mileage, tolls, that's right, and the conference fee.
And there was a conference fee as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. There should be a place where the town has some budget for that kind of thing.
Yes, it's actually, one more comment. I hadn't been to Poughkeepsie in years. It has not improved. It was very sad. There's so many really beautiful historic buildings, but the town just does not have the financial resources to maintain all these buildings. But the downtown area really had some gems. So if you ever get the chance to sort of look around there, it's very interesting.
Well, thank you for going and for connecting us to the activity. And just as one other element, I have asked Vicky to, uh, starting in June, to help manage the discussion of the business of the Landmarks Board meeting. And so we'll probably have some little hitches here and there as we kind of rearrange the manner of interacting and of running the discussions and reviewing the business that comes before us. So just want to make you aware that that's in the works. So, are there anything else? Is there anything else? Is this one, or is more than one? Is there anything else to come before the board? Do you have anything?
There's just notably two houses in Bridgehampton, Hayground and one on Ocean Road. One has a for sale sign up, and another Haynes house on Scuttle Hill Road, Breeze Hill. It's going to be coming onto the market shortly. And I'm just,
I've been worried about that house
I
for a
just,
long time, yeah.
I mean, there's lots of preserved farmland around it, but the main property, 890 Scuttle Hole, I'm not sure if you're all familiar. It's actually on the 1858 chase map that you mentioned earlier, Bill. One of the drawings, an illustration on the on the border is of this house. So on that map there's the Lizon, the Prosper King house is on that map, as well as this is the only other local on the Southampton, or excuse me, Suffolk County map. But it was built for part of Tammany Hall. Stephen Haynes was an alderman in Brooklyn, and he built it, and was in his family, and then went to the Coughlin family. There it is. Coughlin family's owned it since the turn of the 20th century, and I believe it's going to be passing
Passing out of the family,
yeah,
yes.
I think
Yeah.
the family members are
The-
going to Ben,
People I've spoken to have been inside. I don't know if you have
I've been inside.
gone
yeah.
inside. It has a lot of the interior original characteristics when it was built. And the question is, should there be an initiation of an application for landmark designation? And it's just something that I've thought about, but haven't jumped to the particular decision at the moment. But it would be a shame if this house was really altered in some way. It truly is a historic house, and as
From the air, Breeze Hill is written on the top of the barn roof. So
well, they wrote Breeze Hill is kind of the name of the rise that it sits on, and there was an airport nearby back in the 20s and 30s, and the rambunctious pilots would fly in all kinds of weather without navigation, and the painting on the roof of the Breeze Hill barn would tell them the airport is that way about a half mile, and it would be enough to get them there. So, and it was also, strangely enough, these farms, I had one pilot once mentioned that some of the fields that had pumpkins on that were unharvested were all orange. And in that area, that was one of the ways in which some people would be guided to get to East Hampton Airport by just knowing where the pumpkin patches were described to them by other pilots flying visually rather than through instrument navigation. So, but anyway. Yeah.
that's how you navigate.
Yes. Well, yes. Yeah. Right.
But I mean, with all the certified local government and all the work that Vicky's done and you've all done, there are some candidates that are
for landmarking.
Yeah. What was the Ocean Road, did you say?
And the other one is 510 Ocean Road. It was Albie Musnicki's house. It's an old Ludlow house. It's about 5 acres. It's a big parcel. Right on Ocean Road.
And is
they
that
just
listed
said-
online or something like that?
I'm not, yeah, it's online.
It's online? Okay. Yeah.
It's got a very empty price tag.
So, do you want to update anything about?
Yeah, well, 690 Ocean Road, which was the Sanford house, the owner that disassembled it and stored it in a barn has offered to donate it back to the town. We've reached out to CPF to see if the Nathaniel Rogers property would be an appropriate location for it, but we haven't heard anything yet. And
Yeah.
the supervisor wanted CPF to make a decision on whether that property could accommodate it.
It's kind of out of my hands.
No, I know that, but
So-
yeah, I mean, I saw the developer last week, and I said, how quickly do you want us to take it off your hands? And he said, well, he's not in a great rush, but obviously the sooner the better.
Just to,
The whole house up Ocean Road.
yeah,
Put it on the
the house is, what was the date, do you recall?
1740.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right, 1740.
1740.
And it was disassembled after trying to find a relocation on an emergency basis for it in the neighborhood, but it was then disassembled. The property was going to be either flipped or without the house, or sold for another building. And it turned out that a neighbor of the property would have bought the house to keep it, and didn't know, and of course it fell into the hands of basically a developer in Southampton. And so
David, what year was that when they dismantled it?
Wasn't that long ago.
2020.
I have
The neighbor ended up buying it.
And the
Anyway.
lot is empty.
Yeah, the lot's empty. The neighbor bought it because he didn't want a house put there.
let's see, what was it, 620?
690.
690
690.
on Ocean.
But it was just recently back to intentions.
690 demo was May 2022. And we had also descendants of the Sanford family. It was a Sanford house, which there were multiple Sanford houses in the neighborhood, offered to donate Revolutionary War memorabilia and objects, including the rifle used in the Revolutionary War, for a little Sanford display, and if the town were to take up the house. So that letter was offered, but of course nothing turned out at that time. But that may be something else to keep in mind if this project develops.
How many years ago was it you, I, and Jeffrey Vogel sat down to talk about making that a little historic district of its own?
Yeah, that was, yeah. And it's still a sensitive area because there is the original Sanford house on Bridge Lane, and there are a couple of other important houses right there that are early 19th or late 18th century structures, but they're disappearing faster than we can convince people that they should be saved. So
One other thing, where did we leave off on the preservation opportunity clause?
I have not, the supervisor said she was going to communicate with other town board members to see that. And but like a lot of things with the town board and the landmarks board, stuff gets said, but doesn't always get done. So we'll have to see, and maybe at some point there might be a whisper of a reminder to see if anything is stirred. So anything else? We captured a lot. If nothing else, we'll adjourn the meeting. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.